This is one of my old competition videos from around 4 years ago in San Jose. At purple belt, I think I was around middleweight at that time. So let's have a look. So the match starts, and the first thing you see here is my opponent is just circling around me. Now, what I'm doing wrong here is my posture's way too straight here, if you see here. This allows my opponent to take a shot on me, and it will be really hard for me to base or sprawl out and defend the shot, since we don't have any grips. Standing up more tall is like more a judo style, but you can't need grips for this. Otherwise, you better have really good wrestling defense, which I know I didn't have back then for sure. So what I should be doing, my stance should be a lot more like this. So like more bent over. And I should use at least one arm to protect my, I don't know what I drew here. To protect my front legs. In case he shoots in, I can use my arm to block. I can use the other arm to keep him away and look for some grips. Being straight up like this is usually not a good idea. So here he's coming in for some kind of takedown, but then decides to pull guard instead. But as you can see here, he's looking for a half guard, which is something I really don't recommend. I think pulling half guard is a really bad idea. And the reason for that is that half guard is a guard that works when your opponent is on his knees. But when you start the match from standing, he's not just going to come down onto his knees for you. So you need to pull some kind of open guard or close guard where you're able to do something when they're standing. If you just look to control a leg, let's have a look here. Like I think he's trying to pull it in. He's starting in a pretty disadvantageous position here. He was able to lock the legs, which is good on him, because right here I could have just kicked the leg out and step back with like an X pass and pass immediately. But he was able to connect, which is good for him. He's holding my leg already. And now we're in this knee slide / half guard position. His grip here is good for him. So he's able to come up on a single leg with the grip if he's able to use his knee here to bump me forward. Then he can make me post on my hands and he will be able to work for the single leg from there. I'm trying to get the underhook here, but he's not giving me space, so I can't do that. So my main goal here should be to get his back flat on the mat. As long as he's sideways, he's in a somewhat strong position. If his shoulders, like if this shoulder goes down to the mat, then he will lose his whole advantage in this situation. What I can do to achieve this is I can drive this knee across. I can try a back step pass with this leg, like a big circle to the other side, which will also flatten him out. But I would have to be careful that he's not using this leg here to catch me. Like if he brings this leg like straight and over and he can catch my hip, then he can do the Jedi mind trick sweep and he will actually end up on top. So if you do the back step, I would recommend first circling the hook on top of his leg and then doing the back step. The other thing I can do is just try to like really pull his arm, that's like the bottom arm, upwards and pushing down on this side, which should also flatten him out. So let's continue. Here you can see me making a check here on the hip, which is good. This makes it really hard for him to come up, so I'm blocking that there. If I didn't have that, he will be a little bit more mobile. Now this is not going to stop him from coming up completely, but it will make it harder for him. Now he's trying to go for the bump, but he didn't really commit to it and he wasn't in a perfect position for it since I had the check on him as well. So now he's opened up a lot of space, so he's not really holding on to my foot anymore. Like he's squeezing, I'm not able to just pull it out, but he's lost a lot of his control that he had before. And what you can also see is that his knees, both his knees, are away from his body. Like whenever you play guard, you want your knees glued to your chest and to your elbow. There should be no space between your elbows and your knees, because otherwise that's exactly where you pass. Like the passer wants to get between this elbow and knee space right here. Like I want to get in here. And right now there is space to get there. If he kept everything close, it would be really hard for me to get there. What I could do here is, like what I would do differently these days, is I would use my hands more to post. Like right now I'm using my hands here to push him down. But if I would just space on the mat, for example, here, then I could use my legs a lot more mobile, and I could use my other foot here to circle inside, make a butterfly hook, and pass straight to mount, for example. Back then I was focusing a lot more on using my hands to pass. These days I'm using my feet a lot more like hands. So you can use all four limbs instead of just fighting with the hands, and your legs are an afterthought. Like here I'm trying some weird backstep, but again, right now there's a big gap here where I could just put my butterfly hook in and then pass. But I was probably not aware of that back then. That's a bad grip for me. I think I thought I got the gi pants, so this should definitely be a penalty for me. I apologize to my opponent. Okay, so now he got into a deep half guard here and we're scrambling. But I'm really high up here, so he doesn't really have my hips controlled well. If my hips were lower, like more down here, then he would have a lot better control and he could use it to sweep. But right now I'm almost in a step over pass position. So if I can drop my hips down to the mat and at the same time get an underhook with this hand under his arm, then I can get the guard pass. So I'm going for it here, but I don't have the underhook. If you see right now, I'm not really fighting for the underhook. I'm more worried about pushing him down. So now he gets the underhook on me. Right now there would be space for me to swim it in. But I'm more worried about staying on top, I think. And here, as you can see here, since I didn't get the underhook, like right here, he's able to make this grip here. Actually, he's using both hands here to control my leg, which makes it hard for me. Now I really have to focus on sprawling and defending the position here. While before I had the chance at the guard pass. Right now I'm defending the sweep, and my main goal here is to stay on top. So because I didn't get that underhook, he's actually in a pretty decent spot here. At least a big improvement to where he was before. I'm able to break the grip, and now I get that underhook. But I don't really check his other side here. If you see right now, my only frame that I have is the underhook here. There's nothing on the other side controlling his arm there or keeping the distance. His head is free, so he's still in a good position to wrestle from there. And here he shoots in for a high crotch takedown. Here is a really good position. And if he wanted to, he could probably even use this hand here on my elbow and switch to a fireman's carry. So this is a good position for him. But since I have the underhook here, if he just drives forward, as you will see, I'm connected to his upper back. So he's not in a really good position to finish the takedown from there. And he has a lot of momentum here, so I'm able to roll him over. He's still scrambling to get back on top. And here, you see, I still have the underhook. So here I could probably try to push him back down, wrestle him, maybe check the other shoulder with this hand. But I think here I'm really focused on staying on top, which also makes sense, and I just disengage. Now here, it stops, but my opponent still keeps driving in. So what I do here is really well, like I check the bicep here, which prevents him from taking a shot on me. So I have the underhook on the other side and the check on this side. So now shooting was pretty much impossible compared to before, where he was able to shoot in because I only had one side controlled instead of both. Now I have both, so even if it was still live, I'm in a pretty decent position to defend the takedown. So we reset, and now I pull guard, looking for my butterfly guard. Back then I really love to play butterfly, one like X and X guard. Now I still do, but it's not my go-to guard anymore as it was back then. For a second there, I had a really good position for the hook sweep, like right here. I should have just went down with my back onto the mat and sweep him. But he started pushing me here, so I just try to close my guard instead, which is not something I would recommend doing, because you can, like, as you see, when I at this right now, I'm still stuck on one side, so he could actually use this to pass, but he's also pushing away at the moment, so he's not able to use that to his advantage. But I would not recommend going to close guard from butterfly like this, like I'm doing here. And here, this is a mistake I see a lot, and as you can see, I'm guilty of this myself here, and that's the collar grip here, which can be useful in some cases, but as you can see right now, my opponent has two frames, so I guess both his arms that he can use to push me down and keep himself up. At the same time, like if I want to break him down, I need to get rid of those frames. So I have to break the frames on both sides, and I have to get his hip or break his posture. And to do that, I should use my hip, because if what I'm doing right now, I'm using my hand here to pull him down. And I can use my other hand here to break the frame on this side. But the other frame, nothing's going to happen. What I could do instead is I can use this hand over here, this hand over here, and then I can use my knees and my hip to break the posture. So I'm able to take both frames out of the equation. You can break the posture with the collar grip, but only if he's not using both hands to base. So if he's trying something else, it might work. But if you really want to break the posture, then use your hands to beat the frames and use your knees, your hips to break the posture. So I'm trying to swim in here, and this is actually like the good pommel, but since he's pushing with the other hand, it's not working. So if I would attack both sides, then it would have been a better position. I think we can skip forward here a little bit. Not much happens. Okay, so here there's a penalty, so he starts to stand up to create some action. I try double ankle and he comes back down. But here he makes a mistake. And the mistake here is he's keeping one knee up. If you see here, the knee on this side, it's not on the mat anymore. Like, why is it important to keep the knees on the mat in the close guard? It's because the knees control the hip. So when both knees are on the mat, he can create a check on both sides of the hips. So I'm not able to move left or right. But since he removed that knee from the mat, now my hip is free to move all the way over there. What that means is I can get perpendicular on that side. So I can move myself over, like turn my body to this side, and attack the armbar, the pendulum sweep, and variations like that. Which is what I'm trying to do here. I think I got leg controlled, but I'm not really controlling the arm here, I think. Like right, you see this grip here? It's not really helping me in this scenario. I have this grip here, which is good. But this hand here should control his arm somehow. Whether it's at the elbow, at the wrist. I just need, like at the sleeve, I need some control on the other side, because otherwise he can just pull the arm out. Which is exactly what happened. So now I'm in recovery mode, and I can already see I'm doing a mistake here, and that's I'm holding on instead of pushing. Whenever you're in the situation like this where you lose all control over your opponent, your first goal should be to get your frames back between you and your opponent. So that means I'm going to use my arms and my legs as a frame before I worry about grips. Grips are here to pull, not to push. But right now I'm using, as you can see, I'm looking for grips with both my hands. So this puts me in a pretty bad spot. So now this is a really late recovery. Like you see, I'm just swung this leg over. And now I'm trying to create some space and scramble out of the position. But this should not have been necessary. If I just have used my hands to frame, or my forearms, and then put this foot instead just like over on the shoulder, then it would have been a much easier guard recovery. But because I was holding on way too long, I put myself into a much worse position. Now here, this is almost a guaranteed pass for him. Like my leg is here. So all he has to do is put some pressure and circle around to the other side. I'm able to invert though and avoid the pass, but I've put myself into a much worse position than I should have. So now, as a small mistake here from my opponent, so we end up in half guard. And here, instead of going for the crossface or for the control on the other side, let me rewind a little bit, he's posing on the mat, like right here. This gives him base, but you can see here there's a big gap where I can take my arm out if I want to. He's not controlling my head, so I can move. Usually my favorite position from top here for him, like in his position, would be to get the crossface. So this arm here should be right around the neck. And as a second option, you can control the shoulder here, the arm, like over the shoulder. So it's like when you go for a Kimura grip. What you never want to do is you never want to be across the hip, like without controlling the arm or the shoulder, because then the person on bottom can grab your armpit and attack sweeps and back takes from that position. Like right here. There, if I would make a grip here on this armpit, whether it's the gi, ideally, or just the armpit, then I have the opportunity to switch this hook here, so this leg over, so I switch my hooks, and then I can pull the bottom knee out, and I can either sweep, or I can try to take the back from this position. But I don't think I knew that back then. So right now, he's actually in a pretty bad spot, but I'm not really using it here. As you can see, I'm again grabbing gi to push, which doesn't make much sense because now I'm holding him up like by a rope, so he's still relatively free to move. And now he's actually going to control my arm, or like my head. Like now I'm giving him the controls that he actually wants to have, while before I was in a much better position. Now he has my arm controlled for the Kimura. So in this position, my only like lifeline here is this leg. I have to make sure that I stay over his knee. He of course wants to push my knee down, free his knee, and then he can pass. But only if he has good control here. I would not recommend doing it without holding the head, as you can see in a moment why. So he has me pinned pretty well here. So if he wanted to go for the mount, what he should do is just switch back to control my head. Now he's trying to push my leg, but as you saw here, since he was trying to push with the hand, it opens up the elbow here. So I was trying to make a grip to underhook his arm. He was aware of it and immediately retracted the arm. If he would have pushed with the elbow like we teach in the fundamentals, I would not have the chance to do this at all. So he should have just kept his elbow tight and pushed my knee with his elbow instead of the hand. I'm doing something with the gi, don't know what, and he's pushing again. Now, this is a really important moment here. So right here, he's freeing his knee, but since he doesn't have my neck controlled, as you can see, I'm able to bridge up and actually end up on top. If he had a crossface, I would probably not be able to do it. Maybe sometimes, but it would be really low percentage. But since he's not controlling me here, I have this short moment here where I can bridge. Now it's really short. As you can see right now, I'm not... this foot here is completely free. He's trying to get to mount. So I'm using the moment to immediately bridge up and trap and roll him before he's able to stabilize into a good position. So this is really timing based, and there's only a short moment when this will work. If you go a little bit too early or too late, you will just give up the pass. So the timing has to be spot on for this one. But again, if you had a strong crossface, I would probably not be able to do it, or at least not as easy like this. So I end up on top. He immediately goes to deep half court. And if you watch here, watch his elbow here. Right now his elbow is away from his body. So I'm using my arm here to trap his elbow in that position, which is really good. So this is an open elbow position. Whenever the elbow is away from the body, especially in the deep half guard here, the person on top can attack with things like Kimura or arm bars or things like that. So it would be in his interest to get his elbow really close to his ribs here. But since I'm holding it there, I'm opening up some attacks for me later. So if you're in this situation, you always want to control the elbow, keep it away from the body, and then start to look for an opening. So he's pulling himself in, but as you can see, I'm still controlling that elbow, just making sure he's not able to close the elbow all the way to his ribs. And then when the time is right, I can start the attack. Like now I'm switching to the Kimura grip. Since I was keeping it away, he never had the chance to defend it well. So now I have the full Kimura. So now immediately when we turn here, I'm swinging my leg over to look for the armbar position, because he's probably holding the belt or the pants. I'm not sure, I can't see. So I'm not able to pull his arm out with the Kimura grip. So by inserting my leg there, I'm switching to an armbar position where I can use my hips and a lot more grip breaks compared to just having the Kimura. It also breaks his posture a little bit better in this situation. But the main problem here for me is my hips are really far away from his, as you can see. So I'm falling off, like I'm falling off the back here. It would be better for me if my hips were, of course, closer to his hips. How could I do that here? I don't actually have to keep the Kimura grip here. Since this underhook here is keeping the elbow away from the body, what I could do is use my other hand to base on the mat, and then I can push myself back up, and then I can connect the grip again if I want to. If I hold on here too long and he's able to pop his head out, then he would actually end up in side control. I might be able to roll him over with the Kimura here, but it becomes a lot more scrambly than it has to be. So the safe option here would be to just release the Kimura grip, but keep the underhook to make sure you keep the elbow away from the body, push yourself back up, and then look either for the back, Kimura, armbar, or another attack. So here he's really trying to free himself. Pushing my knee down here. As you can see, he's trying to pull the head out, which is a good idea from him. And he manages to do so right here. But since I still have the Kimura grip, it's actually not too bad, because now I can roll him. If I let go, then like with just the underhook, I would not be able to do this. So in this scenario, it actually works out to my advantage that I kept the grips like they are, because now I can start to apply pressure with the Kimura, which forces him to roll right here. Then he comes up, but he loses the grip in the transition, and I'm able to finish the belly down armbar. I hope you enjoyed this analysis, and see you back next time.